Welcome to the Lou Riley Live Show, a podcast about health, wellness, motivation, and success. Now, here's your host, Mr. Lou Riley.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Regardless of what time it is where you are, just want to send a greeting out to you. This is Lou Riley here with another episode of the Lou Riley Live Show, my podcast. Want to definitely take the time out to ask, if you have not, please make sure you follow me on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, all at Lou Riley Live, hashtag Lou Riley Live. Not hashtag, / Lou Riley Live. Let's get that right. So I just definitely want to stay plugged in with you and to begin to share more of what it is I want to do, be, and become, where this podcast is definitely a beginning to those great things. It's been a heck of a week. It's definitely been a heck of a week. I like many of you, I've spent my time glued to the TV watching the Trayvon Martin trial, or the George Zimmerman trial, but I'm calling it the Trayvon Martin trial, and I say that tongue-in-cheek. In addition, celebrated a birthday, and that's always a great thing. And definitely for those of you, especially my Facebook folks who took the time out just to drop a line to say happy birthday, that is tremendously appreciated. As I had my time to really contemplate and think to myself, it just dawned on me that, to me, it meant so much more for someone just to take the time to say, hey, happy birthday, hey, thinking about you on this day, especially when it's a genuine thing. That's a beautiful thing, and it's a great feeling, and I get so much out of that, and that's going to take me a lot farther than many other things can. Plus, I've never been a big, not really a big, I can't say never, but not really huge birthday guy, and gotta paint the town red, and I'm celebrating for the week or for the month. Not my thing. I just appreciate that life has decided to give me one more cycle at it. So, with that being said, let's move a little forward. I definitely want to share a story with you, as I want to tie it into some of my thoughts on the Trayvon Martin case, and I'm really not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, simply because I've read a lot of the responses, a lot of the emotional cries and pleas and responses where that case is concerned, or where the case is concerned, and I definitely appreciate those who stepped out and wore the emotion on their sleeve and just said what was on their heart. And sometimes, as a person who creates content and puts stuff out, sometimes you got to take the time out to listen. Sometimes it's somebody else's opportunity, somebody else's moment to let their voices be heard. And I just really sat back and just soaked it all in. And I didn't feel a need to come out and press and do this scathing vitriol, this spirit-filled podcast episode about injustice and things of that nature. But rather I said, well, let me stay the course, and let me just pay attention to see what goes on, and let me fit in where I fit in. So with that being said, and forgive any bumps I may have in the road of this story, but I've told it before, but the story goes like this. There were 3 businessmen in the United States who were able to gain a meeting with a powerful king. King lived overseas. And so they wanted to do their research because they really wanted to impress this king, because landing a business deal with this king was going to spell a tremendous financial windfall for themselves personally, for their company, and things of that nature. So in their studying of what the king likes, because they definitely wanted to impress this king, they learned that he was an avid golfer, that he loved to play golf, that he wasn't necessarily the greatest golfer, but he just loved the challenge of the sport. So the 3 businessmen sat down and talked about how they were going to come together and what they were going to do while they spent their time with the king. And 2 of them came up with a plan that, hey, we know he likes golf. Let's take him out to play golf. But tell you what, we're all pretty good golfers. Let's step our games back and let's let him win, so that if he beats us, he's going to be even more likely to do business with us. We want to get on his good side. One of them wasn't so hot on the idea, didn't voice his opinion very much, but he did let him know that he wasn't really feeling it, but I guess he would go with what the group said to do. So these guys are over, they travel overseas, they meet with the king, they're greeted, all the trimmings, people waiting for them, celebratory, things of that nature. They have that good evening when they get in, they rest, they get up the next morning, and they go out to the golf course to play. So what happens is that the two gentlemen who had originally come up with the idea sort of played to the rear. They let the king outplay them, or they let their games not shine because they wanted the king to win. Well, the third guy who had a problem with it decided to play his regular round of golf, and he actually wound up winning. And so these two guys are highly upset. They're pissed. Highly upset, because they're thinking, dude, we just discussed what we were doing and you just ruined it for us. Well, as it turns out, as it went along, the king was very appreciative of this person who singled themselves out, of this gentleman who said that I'm just going to play my regular game and what happens happens. The king appreciated that, and not only did he do business, he told the lone gentleman, he said, listen, let me make this extra special for you. Tell me anything you want. Anything you want, I'll grant you wish. Tell me what you like. And the man said, man, I just really appreciate the fact that you've done business with our company. You don't know how much is going to help us when we get back to the United States. Hey, just send me some golf clubs. Okay, king said, granted, it's your wish. So the three businessmen returned back over to the United States, celebrated by their office and superiors for having landed this extremely tremendous deal. And the gentleman who actually won the golf game sort of kind of paid attention, looking out for UPS or FedEx, figuring, maybe a couple of weeks or so, he's probably going to get them customized or something, maybe a few weeks or so. So a couple of months pass, and he hasn't received anything. And one day he receives a letter in the mail. And it's from the country where he visited, from that king. And he's like, well, maybe it's a certificate or something for me to pick up the clubs. And when he opened up the letter was the deed entitled to a golf club, an actual golf club. Now, the moral of that story is simply this: kings think differently. I'll say that again. Kings think differently. And when I look back on all of the things that I witnessed in the Trayvon Martin case, in the trial of George Zimmerman, when I consider the emotions that people have when it comes to this, especially those who grew up like I grew up in inner cities of given whatever city, USA. And I understand the emotions, but I have to, in trying to say, how does this affect me? How do I respond to this? How do I make what it is I do meaningful? I've got to remind myself that I am a descendant of kings. My ancestors were royalty at some point in time, if you trace your history back. And I know that I have a calling to elevate my thoughts and my actions to a higher plane. And if there was anything I would ask of anybody, I would ask you to do just the same. How can you honor the memory of this young man, Trayvon Martin, who was just the victim in this tragic case? I believe that one of the best things you can do is to recognize what it is you're supposed to add to this world and make sure you do all that you can do to achieve that, to raise your consciousness, raise your activities, raise the people around you. Make yourself so great that people have to notice you. And that's when you begin lifting yourself up, lifting up others, and helping others by your example realize that there are other ways for us to be prosperous. And when I speak of other ways, I'm definitely speaking in terms of what people are expecting to be violent outbursts. The police in places, as I've known, have been put on alert. They're on watch. I saw some of the pictures of protesters blocking the highways, the interstates in California, getting out of their cars on the interstate. Just a peaceful protest. The pictures of those in Times Square, even in Nashville, there were those who rallied at the state capitol on, I believe, the very same night of the verdict. And I believe there was another march from Tennessee State down to the farmers market, if I'm not mistaken. Forgive if I'm off on the specifics. And all those things are great. All those things are great. And for those of you who feel compelled to be a part of that, hats off to you. Definitely hats off to you, because you did what was in your heart to show protest. And hopefully those who have been elected as representatives of the people are paying attention and are going to realize that there are those of us who definitely want to hear your platform on how we're going to keep our young men safe, be they black, white, Latino, Hispanic, what have you. Because one of the beautiful things that you realize is that when you saw pictures of those peaceful protests, you didn't see just blacks, just African Americans. You saw people of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, religions. You saw it all. And is that not America? Is that not America? And I think that's a beautiful thing. I believe that one of the tragic things we can do in the midst of bad things that happen to us or tragedies that occur to us is to fall into a corner and think that we're the only people that this happens to. There are others who know injustice when they see it, and you just never know the barriers that you could break when you can begin to communicate. It's kind of like that story, and let me begin my final approach to the end of this podcast. It's kind of like that story of the Tower of Babel, and I'm completely paraphrasing. I might have told this, or I've said it so much I can't remember whether I said it on the podcast or whether I just told it to somebody in real life. But the biblical story about the Tower of Babel and how the people were erecting the sculpture or the structure up to the heavens, and they said that they were building it and making great progress, and that God in his infinite wisdom and jealousy, that God struck them with various languages. And so now that everyone speaks the same language, the progress that they had building halted. And when I hear that story, I think about, just imagine the progress we could make as human beings if we finally understood that we all speak the same language. But in order to recognize that, you've got to listen, and you've got to open your heart and empathize with where a person is, what their truth is, and understand where that comes from. And at the same time, that person has to do the same with you. So guys, this is Riley signing off with the podcast. A little shorter than the others. That's just the way it works. And I definitely appreciate you all keeping up with this episode. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. We can definitely have dialogue over this. And I look forward to that. But again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all at Lou Riley Live. Look forward to seeing you all in the next podcast. Until then, may these words keep you. Take care.